Welcome to the Fighter's Forecast.
Episode 30. We're recording Sunday after UFC Buckley versus Usman. Pretty good fight night on paper. The results, I would say the results were interesting. Maybe a lot of the fights didn't quite live up to what we were hoping, but we'll get into that in a second. Drew, how's your week been? Anything crazy happened to you recently?
I mean, aside from today, not too bad. I was working at an internship, and right when the game ended, it started these clouds came in, and I was like, okay, it's not too bad. It's just a little bit of rain.
Oh gosh.
And I go inside, and I come back outside, and it's just a monsoon, and I'm running to my car, and there's six inches of water in the parking lot. I'm driving back 15 miles an hour down the road. It was bad, but other than that, nothing too crazy. I had a little busy day yesterday, but other than that, I just stayed home and watched the fight night after some stuff. But other than that, nothing too crazy. What about you?
Nice, dude. Sounds like I kind of got hit by the rain too. This weekend I was at the beach. My girlfriend. It was a good weekend. We got hit by that rain too. I mean, obviously not the same stuff, but went on a couple walks. One time went on a walk, turned around, and probably similar to something you saw, the biggest freaking storm cloud I've ever seen in my life was just staring back at us. So had to run to avoid getting hit by that. But yeah, it was a good relaxing weekend. Watched the fights. I'm proud to say I picked Usman by decision. I can't say that I was predicting him to look that solidly vintage, but I was still impressed by the performance. Honestly, we both honestly could have thought more that his last fight was against Chimaev at 185, and he put on a very solid performance. I was thinking this while I was watching that fight, and we'll get into the fight breakdown in a second, but I mean, his last fight was not unimpressive. He stood there toe-to-toe with a huge guy at 185. Obviously, he's fought at 70 before, but I mean, Chimaev is challenging for the title next, and he stood there and banged with him for 3 rounds, and in a fight that a lot of people thought if it had gone 5 rounds, Usman would have won. So this is all to say, I feel like Usman was a little bit disrespected by us included leading into it, even though the pick was there. I thought it was funny. I don't know if you watched his post-fight interview, but he was talking about how everybody was insulting his training videos with his knees, and I was thinking oh, that's exactly what we said. But I have a little clip from the post-fight interview here, but Drew, before I play that for the audience, what do you think of the fight? What do you think of the fight night overall? Maybe let's give a rating for the night as a whole.
As fight night stand, I would probably give it an 8. If you compare it to all the other fights, it's probably more like a low 7. I mean, it was a decently stacked card. I think it had its good moments. I mean, I think the Wellmaker knockout was a big one. I think the Usman-Buckley fight was really entertaining. I think especially the last 2 rounds, you could really see that the crowd was kind of getting behind it a lot. But yeah, I mean, it was a decent card. In regards to the main event itself, I was very surprised, to say the least. I did think that Usman was going to be very dominant when it came to grappling, but I just didn't think he was going to have as much success. And I think the main issue for my doubts was probably just because of the time. The broadcast said it themselves. He hadn't fought since October 2023, and usually when there's that big of a gap, and especially when you're going against a guy who's been as hot as Joaquin Buckley has been, it's rare to see someone be that dominant still. But Usman's grappling was just insanely good, very dominant. It was almost like the style, yeah. The style was very Khabib-esque. He would just take him down, pin him almost against the fence, and just wrap his legs, or wrap Buckley's legs with his own legs, and just slowly crawl up. And it just seemed and it was very different from Merab's pressure, where Merab will let you stand up just so he can take you down again and just kind of break you down even more. Usman kind of just smothers you and holds you down, and he even also implements some really good ground and pound. But a really good fight, I think, and the commentating crew was talking about this as well. I think Buckley comes out of this fight really good. I think I'm worried for whoever Buckley has to fight next, because after that, I think that's probably one of the hardest fight. That's easily the hardest fight Joaquin Buckley's ever faced within the welterweight division. I think he's going to learn a lot from that fight. But in regards to Usman, it's kind of it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the last episode, where we don't really know what he does next. I mean, I listened to what Usman was talking about in the pre-fight. I haven't heard the post-fight interview, but I do remember he was talking about getting the belt back and then moving back up to 185, getting the title there. Like, it seems like he has no goals of leaving anytime soon, and which was very contrasting from my perspective on where his career was going. So it's interesting to see it from there. But as you were saying, it'd be cool to hear this post-fight interview and kind of gauge where we go from there.
Yeah, let's hear a little bit of this post-fight interview here, as far as what he had to say to the fans and attendants and everybody, including us online, that was talking about his health.
Did you expect to be able to do that, or did you think it would be a little bit harder for you in this fight? You know, I know it's a running joke. Everybody want to get on the internet and talk shit. Oh, his knees. Well, shut the fuck up. I can still do what I do.
Yeah, so that was Usman in regard to courtesy of the UFC, of course, not our clip, but in regards to what everybody was saying about his knees. I think he's right. You know, it was vintage Usman, honestly. The takedowns were coming easy. You know, you knew Buckley was definitely expecting that because you saw it on the feet. I mean, I think for a lot of the early rounds, it was pretty back and forth. Like, Usman was landing some good shots, but once Buckley was able to defend the takedowns, it was pretty clear that, you know, he had the striking advantage there. So Usman had a strategy, and he was able to implement it. And I think we looked this up last week, but he's like 38, right? I mean, he is not a young guy anymore. Let me click on this real quick. Yeah, he's 38 years old. So former champ, 38. I mean, he's been in the UFC since like 2015. It's hard for me to predict a guy like that to go on some crazy title run, especially considering the welterweight division is probably as strong as it's been since before he was champion. He really was the last dominant champion in this division. People kind of thought Leon would be that guy, but let's just look at the top five before we try to match these guys up next. Obviously, JDM number one, or the champion, Bilal number one contender, Sean Brady, Shavkat, Leon, Kamaru was 5. You know, he beat the number 7, so you probably think that he's not going to move up. Before the fight, I called for, if he didn't retire, which obviously he's not going to retire, a fight with Bilal Muhammad. He did call for the winner of JDM versus Islam after the fight, which I think it would be a great fight. I do think there's a lot of contenders that are ahead of Usman at this point in his career. I know he's a former champion, but, you know, Shavkat still needs to get that shot. Sean Brady has had too many good wins to get ignored. So I wouldn't mind a Bilal versus Usman fight. That could be, you know, if not, probably maybe not a number one contender fight for Bilal, but definitely for Usman. I could definitely see that. And yeah, he did call for the leap up to 185. You know, he's calling for a lot at this point in his career. I'm not saying he can't do it. I would say if anybody can do it, it is Usman. He, you know, has been a champion before. He's beat some of the best guys in the history of the division and the sport. But I think he should slow down, take another fight probably before the year's over, maybe against Bilal, and then we'll see what's next. What do you think should be next for Usman here?
It's a weird situation because I think the primary thing is the age. I think if you're Usman, you have to choose between one or the other. I think it's more plausible for Usman to win at 170, most likely. I think a jump up to 185, especially at this point, would be a bit difficult. But I mean, I guess it's just you like weigh your options. Is it more significant for Usman's legacy to be a double champ, or is it to be the guy that comes back and wins the welterweight belt at 38 years old? Exactly. I know. I'm saying like just because of his age, I feel like it's only plausible to go after one.
Yeah.
Could he, if he's like really active and he has 2 fights in the next 6 months, very possible. But I just seeing in regard, if we're comparing it to how much time it took for him to transition back to 170 after going up to 185 that first time, I just find it hard to do. In regards to future opponents, like you said, I think that Bilal one would make the most sense. I think it seems like Sean Brady, Leon Edwards is already set up. Another one interests me is Shavkat. I think that would be kind of an interesting one as well because
I think Shavkat needs a title shot though. I think he's been. I think Shavkat versus Brady for the number one contender or one of those. I just think that's what's so hard about welterweight. Yeah. It's so top heavy, you know.
Yeah, I think it'll really come down to timing because I mean the primary issue is that you have four guys who could very easily you have 3 guys that could very easily say that they deserve a title shot right now, and we're forgetting the main thing here, that Islam Makhachev is moving in to 170. Yeah. Like that complicates things a lot. So not only does that hold not only does that make it more difficult for Usman, it also holds up the 3 other guys in front of Kamaru Usman that are also vying for the belt. So, like, if we assume that somehow, some way, JDM and Islam fight within the next 3 months, I don't think that's very likely. I think they're probably going to be a little bit longer than that. Even then, that would be at least another 3 or 4 months until the next contender of that fight could face the winner of that fight.
Yeah.
So I think it just complicates things. If I'm Kamaru, I would like to try and get a fight on the same card as JDM versus Islam.
Yeah.
And whether that be against Bilal, whether that be against someone else, regardless, I think that's probably the best option, just so it can like line up the timing. We've seen situations where fights that we thought were going to be contender fights just don't work out because the timing is just so much mismatched. I mean, look at how Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev worked out. Like that fight that was listed as by Dana himself as this is the 185 determining fight. That fight's just now happening in August, and that was almost 2 years ago. So I think really it just comes down to timing. If Kamaru can go out and fight Bilal in, I guess November, because there's not going to be a card in September. Probably November, if I had to guess, when Islam JDM fights, and then in the turnaround, if he wins that, maybe fight in like February, maybe. Then yeah, it's definitely doable. I think it's just really difficult because you have. I think the issue with Kamaru is the age also becomes a factor when you're deciding who fights next as well, because say he does go out there and fights Bilal Muhammad, but at the same time you have Sean Brady and Leon Edwards, like if they fight at the same time, and then
they already fought, and that was
shoot, right?
Yeah,
I'm stupid. My bad.
No.
I'm thinking, but and then say my bad. And then say Shavkat comes out back at the same time. You have even if Kamaru was to go out and make a really good case for the title, it's really hard for someone to say that Kamaru should fight over a guy like Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Yeah.
Regardless of his resume and what he's doing. So
yeah, the time is hard for him.
It just complicates things, and I know I went on like a really long tangent, but I don't like. It's weird that I'm still doubting Kamaru Usman because I kind of went into this saying, hey, he's too old. His knees aren't there. He can't do anything. But it can definitely happen. It can definitely happen. So, for sure. What are your thoughts? I think if I guess my question for you would be, what is a realistic timeline where Kamaru Usman gets the belt back at 170?
Yeah, everything you're saying I agree with, because like I think there's actually in my head I'm looking at the welterweight rankings right now, and if I was matchmakers and I was trying to match it up in the most fair way possible, which is not, honestly, a lot of times it is about timing. Well, Sean Brady and Shavkat could both get injured at the same time, and then Kamaru Usman, you know what I mean? Like, random stuff happens all the time in the UFC, so that could play in Usman's favor, is that a lot of these guys are pretty inactive. But, I think perfect world, obviously we have JDM, Islam. I think Bilal, Kamaru would be great later this year. Sean Brady, Shavkat. I think Sean Brady, Shavkat has to be for the number one contender fight. And then, a fight I would like to see would be Leon Edwards versus Ian Gary. I think that could be a really fun way for Ian Gary to get back in there. But as far as Usman's, I don't really see a scenario where if it is a merit-based system that he gets back to the title. Because let's say Sean Brady Shavkat fight, and then honestly that's a coin flip. But let's say Shavkat wins, then he gets a title shot, like you said, after JDM versus Islam, and then maybe you could say Usman gets a title shot, but that won't be until, imagine Islam wins. He's not the very most active champion. You know what I mean? Like, Ramadan comes, it could be later next year, and Usman could be 39, almost 40 by then. Like, I don't see a scenario where unless he gets what did Tony Ferguson call it? Dana White privilege. Unless he gets some of that thrown his way, I don't really see a scenario where he gets the title shot before next year. And that's not even a hit on him. Like, he looked great in his last fight. It just is unfortunately a really top heavy division where there's a lot of contenders that, all deserve title shots, but it's just a held up division and also Islam's moving up. So it's just a hard time to be Kamaru Usman right now.
Yeah. This might be a hot take, but I would argue that it's probably easier. It would probably be easier for Kamaru Usman to make a case for the 185 belt right now than it is for the 170 belt.
Yeah.
Because say Khamzat goes out there and like dusts Dricus.
Yeah.
Like everyone's gonna look and be like, who's the one person that's actually given Khamzat Chimaev trouble in a fight? I mean, you also have Gilbert Burns, but that's
Different time.
way different time. But yeah, it's just a weird situation. I did figure out where I was getting the Leon Sean Brady thing wrong. I was thinking of Ian Gary. Ian Gary and Sean Brady were talking. Because I think Ian was saying that he was supposed to fight Bilal.
Yeah.
But then Sean Brady was like, no, that's not happening. It's me and you, which is weird because you would think Sean would like be saying like, no, I'm going to like sit out until, because there's that case there. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like,
yeah, it's just a hard division right now, dude.
Because I mean, this is like the pieces that need to happen. Like the best case scenario is that JDM and Islam fight like early, like November. And the best case scenario is JDM wins, because if it's Islam's going to wait it out. Yeah. And then also the fight to make there is Shavkat, because both really good title, like really good records.
But also, what if Islam then moved back down and fought like Topuria? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this crazy stuff happens if Islam wins there.
But yeah, I mean, but then like, say, regardless of who wins there, then you have Ian Gary, Sean Brady. The winner of that could be making a case. You have Shavkat coming back. That can make a case. You have whatever the hell Bilal's going to do. I don't think he's going to be able to make a case. But there's like 3 tiers of contenders above Kamaru. I think that's the primary issue. Like the primary issue. And not to say that Kamaru could not give anyone within this list trouble. I mean, like I'm not going to doubt Kamaru Usman anymore, but from a promoter standpoint, it's just going to be really hard to make a case for that, especially from like a guy like Dana White, because I mean, it's just hard to promote. It's just hard to promote a 38-year-old. I mean, assuming he's still 38 at the time, fighting for the belt. But yeah, it's just a tough scenario, and it's really unfortunate because any other year, aside from like any other time, then aside from like this era of like welterweight, you could probably argue that Kamaru would have made his case already for a title contention, but this really just complicates things, and it honestly, in a way, it's a good thing because it really just shows how much the welterweight division has progressed in the last 2 years. Because I remember when we were talking about Leon versus Kamaru, and that was kind of just the epitome of that division at the time. But it's really cool to see how much it's progressed.
Yeah, no, definitely an interesting division. You know, it's a problem for Kamaru, but I think it's actually a pretty exciting time to be a fan of that division. I think there's a lot more movement. That was the problem with welterweight for a long time during like the Masvidal, Edwards. Honestly, when Usman was champion, like that era was full of contenders sitting out, and you know there's not much going on. But I feel like we should probably move on from those guys for now. After that, we can talk about that for hours. The rest of the card was not quite as exciting. Maybe we can both kind of pick out one more standout here. I'll read off the results from the main card. Rose Namajunas beats Miranda Maverick. That was a really solid performance by Rose. Not super exciting, but I mean she ended the fight with that solid knockdown at the end with a pretty nice left hook. Got some control time there, so a good win from her. Edmund Shabazian with a decision over Andre Petrosky. The Cody Garbrandt versus Ronnie Barcelos fight, that one was a little hard to watch from both of us. We both went the other way there. And then Mansour Abdul Malik with the decision. That was a what was it? There was like I totally forget. There was the illegal knee.
Clashing of heads.
Sorry. Yeah. So then they had to score just up to that fight, and then Cody Brundage got the loss there, but kind of a weird fight. And then Alonzo Menifield with the decision win there. But the fight that I'm going to pick out was Michael Chiesa getting the win over Court McGee. I picked this one out because I'm kind of a Michael Chiesa fan. I have like a tendency to lean whenever one of the commentators is fighting, or the guy that do like play-by-play. I always kind of lean towards those guys. I like Chiesa a lot. Been watching him for a long time, obviously, but you know he's on a little 3-fight win streak. He's getting older. He's been calling out Colby Covington for a few years, but you know, not a super exciting performance. I'm really only calling this fight out just because I like to shout out the legends, and you know, honestly, it was kind of the night of the legends if you look at the results here, except for Cody Garbrandt. He kind of messed up the trend there, but what was it? Michael Chiesa, Kamaru Usman, Rose Namajunas all get the wins there, so. Yeah, shout out Michael Chiesa for still keeping it going, and shout out all the rest of the best. Drew, what was one fight that kind of stuck out to you, or one performance?
I mean, I guess it's a little obvious. It was kind of the fight that I said that I was anticipating the most, but Malcolm Wellmaker, I mean, I thought this was going to be a pretty one-sided fight, but the way in which he made it look like a one-sided fight was just completely different from how I was anticipating. Like, it just seemed like completely different speeds and power that he kind of brought them. And I feel bad for Chris Matinho because he just keeps getting fed Well, dogs. Like every time he comes back, well, both times he's come back, he just gets fed to these guys that are just killers within the division. And not to say that Wellmaker is like a top 5 guy already, but he definitely has the makings of. He definitely has the potential to be a guy like that. But yeah, it's just crazy. I was looking at a stat line, and it was like the striking difference between, I think, Sean O'Malley's fight with Chris Matinho and Wellmaker's. Sean O'Malley landed 200 strikes in his 5-round. Was it a 5-round or a 3-round?
3-round fight.
3-round fight against Chris Matinho. Wellmaker landed 25, and that shot at the end was just brutal. I mean, completely flatlined him. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with him and like how he progresses within the division, because Wellmaker looked very dangerous, and he kind of brings this like scary power that I feel like we haven't really seen within the division, because I guess, and we've talked about this, where bantamweight's primarily a grappling division, at least like the most, like some of the more dominant champions within the division have been grappling champions.
Well, the last couple, I guess, with
Aljo and yeah. But and then I guess the guys that have been strikers, I guess you could maybe look at Cody. Like I guess Cody was a guy who seemed to kind of bring this like one punch power that scared a lot of people, but we haven't really seen that with Sean. Sean's kind of more of a touch up. He definitely has the power to knock people out. He did it against Aljo. He did it in many of his fights, moving on his way to the becoming a champion. But it seemed like he kind of created more of almost like a Max Holloway-esque style, where it's just not just a lot of volume and a lot of strikes and just being dangerous from that. But yeah, but Wellmaker just seems very, very strong, and his like punches seem very sturdy and almost kind of like he almost fights in like an Ilya Topuria-esque stance. Like it seems it's very smooth, like boxing. I would say it doesn't seem like MMA striking. I would say that's the one thing that I really noticed from that. But not to talk too much, but that was a very interesting fight, and I'm a little partial because that was the fight I said I was looking forward to. But yeah.
Dude, can I just like before we move on do a little like rest in peace to Chris Matinho? Like, I mean, I just feel so bad for this guy. I just pulled up his, not to say I don't think he's out of the UFC, but I just wanted to pull up his like last couple fights before his regional scene. I mean, goodness gracious, like you got to feel for the guy. So he gets in the UFC because I forget what opponent, but one of Sean O'Malley's opponents fell out like a week before, right? So he has to fight Sean O'Malley on a I don't remember, but on the Poirier McGregor 3 card, he fights him. He gets standing TKO'd and a brutal beatdown, and then he has a canceled fight, and then he gets knocked out in round 1 by Guido Ganetti, and then he loses a grappling match to Denise Paiva, who I think might be a different Paiva, whatever, a UFC fighter, and then he loses a boxing fight, and then he goes on this little win streak, right, the 5-fight win streak, and then he gets back in the UFC after a 5-fight win streak. He gets matched up against an insane contender, Malcolm Wellmaker, and by the time the fight started, he was close to Wellmaker was a minus 5,000 favorite, and then he gets knocked out like brutally in round 1. So this is all just to say, you got to feel for the guy. He clearly loves the sport, or else he would still not be in it like he is. But I mean, my goodness, can we talk about the mistreatment of Chris Matinho? Like, goodness gracious.
It's very unfortunate, and this isn't to say that I've been following the career of Chris Matinho. I don't know like how much he redeveloped his skill set, but it kind of goes back to the thing we were talking about with Patchy Mix, where it's like it's really hard for guys to make their way up in the division whenever they're getting fed to guys that are very competitive. I'm not to say that. I mean, Wellmaker was unranked as well, but he was a very good fighter. I mean, he was coming off really impressive knockout on the Contender Series. Had a very good knockout win in his debut, and I feel for Matinho because I mean, every time he drops in, like it's one
fed like to like these guys to make a highlight reel. You know what I mean?
My question is, was he like reinstated to the UFC before or after this was decided? Because wasn't Wellmaker was a short notice for this fight, was he not? Because I think you know what? I think Matinho was supposed to fight someone else, because
that would literally be the worst luck of any fighter ever heard if that's the case. Because oh my god,
yeah,
you get this guy for a short notice fight, and then you go in. You get, you gotta feel for the guy.
No, that's incorrect. I thought I was gonna show it.
Oh no, you're good. He might be Chris Matinho might be. It might be like a Mick Parkin face right here, and then like a Chris Matinho face right here, just to pay respect to the guy. You know what I mean? Oh my goodness! But yeah.
Oh no! Chris Matinho was the replacement.
Oh my god!
He didn't learn the first time. He didn't learn the first time.
Yeah, because like, what do you even, man? You gotta hope he's gonna get. Put him on an Apex card. You know what I mean? Give him an unranked guy, but don't give him like a 10-8 guy or something. You know what I mean? Like
Feed him some like guy that lost in the first round in the Ultimate Fighter. All right, just give him something.
Yes, please. But anyways, we love you, Chris Mattini. I think that might be it for this card, though, right, Drew? I don't think there's much else to talk about there. But just as far as the shortness of this episode, something we haven't covered on this podcast yet, because honestly, it kind of developed during our break. We wanted to touch on it here all the drama between Tom Aspinall and John Jones. This is definitely not new news to anybody who's listened to this podcast, but obviously, John Jones beat Zuragon to win the undisputed heavyweight title, beat Stipe in his first title defense, and then, you know, Tom Aspinall emerges as this contender, obviously wins the interim belt, defends the interim belt, and then what we all thought was about to happen was arguably what has been built up as the biggest heavyweight fight in UFC history, you know, Tom Aspinall, John Jones. But it just hasn't yet, and it's been a year now, and they've just been going back and forth, and John Jones always goes in these little tirades on X, and Tom Aspinall makes videos with Craig Jones trying to call him out. But I do have a little bit of info. This is all from the Ariel Helwani show. I'll just do a little timeline here, Drew, before I get your opinion on everything. You know, John Jones has been saying for a long time that he would be willing to fight Tom Aspinall, but he doesn't think it's going to do anything for his legacy. He's kind of been going back and forth on if he's retired or not. But recently he's been very, very, very vocal that he is fully retired, which has been very interesting. But as per Ariel Helwani, the UFC did offer him the amount of money he was asking for in the range of $30 million, and John Jones turned down the fight. So a lot of people are saying, you know, ducking allegations, all this kind of stuff. People are upset, and you know, this is actually what's kind of getting to me is just the loss of a year of Tom Aspinall's career. But before we get into kind of our opinions on it, Drew, I wanna know your thoughts as you've been watching this drama unfold. And you know, I would kind of like to know. This is what I go back and forth on a lot. Like, first of all, do you think anybody is in the wrong for what's happening, or do you think it's just circumstantial? And then second of all, if someone is, like, is it on the UFC to strip him, or do you think John Jones is kind of playing with people here and you know, keeping the belt just to hold things up?
It's funny because we've been, and this is kind of just to emphasize how long this has been going on. I don't remember what episode it was, but we have talked about this. I think it was after John, I think, tore his like pec or his shoulder or something like that. And I think the question we were addressing was, is it selfish for John to not have vacated the belt? Because that was the whole reason that the interim title happened in the first place. I don't think we really covered the new Stipe fight. I don't think we really got to that, but it's weird. I'm not necessarily a John Jones fan. I just think I think you can make the case that he's the greatest fighter within UFC history. Some people will argue that with different fighters. But I mean, it's just weird because I don't know the entire discussion, like the contract negotiations. I don't know what's going on in the background. For a long time, I thought this was kind of just the UFC's way of promoting the fight, like kind of being like, oh, this isn't happening. Oh, John's being like, John doesn't want to fight. John doesn't want to do this. Kind of like make people be like want this fight. And then whenever they finally announce it, like, okay, guys, we finally convinced John to fight, then everyone's going to buy up the pay-per-view and like be very invested in it. And that very well could happen. But if what you're saying and like the reports that you have are true, then I think the fault's on John. I mean, do I think that John intentionally, or do I think John intended on preventing Tom Aspinall from fighting as long as he did? I don't think so. I think John thought that he was gonna fight after beating Stipe, and somewhere in between now and then he either decided he didn't want to fight, or he's I don't know. I guess maybe he wants more money. Maybe he doesn't want to fight. I think and this is just going off John's Twitter tirades, and I would like to know your opinion on this. I think John is hoping that Tom will fight again for the interim championship and lose to a guy like Cyril Gane, or lose to another fighter, and then John can go on Twitter or anywhere and be like, see guys, I told you this guy's not on my level. I don't know why you guys wanted me to fight this dude in the first place. I was clearly right. And that's not to say that I don't think John Jones could beat Tom Aspinall. I think John offers a threat to Tom Aspinall that you don't really get from a lot of other heavyweights. But I think if you're looking at purely purely odds themselves. I mean, Tom Aspinall would be one of the harder fights that John has faced within the last 10 years. I mean, he's a very explosive fighter. He's a guy that really hasn't struggled a lot. I mean, you take away his loss to Curtis Blades, and he's had knockout or submission wins within 3 minutes in almost every single fight that he's had in the UFC. But I mean, it's just a weird situation. I feel like the thing that confuses me is how little concerned Dana White seems. Like, people bring it up on press conferences, and Dana's like, John said that? That's funny.
Oh yeah.
Like if this was Conor, like if this was the Conor situation, Dana would be like at a press conference and he'd be like dead serious. He's like, no, this is not what's happening. Conor's gonna fight on this date, like this, and this. Whereas with John, it's kind of just like this up in the air situation. That's kind of what makes me confused, because it doesn't seem like a guy like Dana would like to play with the time of John Jones, especially after seeing how the fallout with Conor and Chandler happened, and not wanting to have that same mistake happen as well. So that's kind of what confuses me in that scenario.
Yeah. Anybody who's listening to this, if you want a really good breakdown where with timestamps and interview clippings from like what you were talking about, Drew, like the Dana White, all that stuff, listen to Ariel Helwani's show last Monday, because he goes through kind of everything you talked about and everything that we both have brought up, where the timeline of it, Dana White's comments, because it has really been interesting to follow Dana White's comments on this, because from the beginning he said, oh, this fight's going to be booked 100%, like we're looking at later this year, and then it's slowly kind of turned into this fight's, it's going to happen, like it's kind of been a little bit less and less positive. And like most recently, like you said, you referenced that last press conference, that was right after John Jones went on this little Twitter, one of his little Twitter kind of tirades, where he was like, and this time he was like, I'm done, like I'm not, it's up to the UFC now. I relinquished it. I think he said, I'm not going to direct quote anybody here, but he said something along the lines of, the belt is basically not mine anymore, like whatever. And then Dana White, like you said, was like, what? Like he said that? I didn't know this. Is that real? Does Dana White know? Does he not know? You would think that he would, like this is, whenever John Jones returns to the sport, like he's going to get 1 million pay-per-view buys. Like that just is what it is. So you'd like to think that Dana would know that, and that maybe that is just a little bit of promoting. Who knows? But yeah, to kind of answer my own question, it's hard to say. I think it's on both parties. I think the UFC are a little bit too positive in John Jones' commitment. He has made all this money. He is out wasn't he in Thailand doing some like reality, or was it in Thailand or like Russia or something?
I think it's in Thailand, but like most of the fighters are like Russian or something like that. It's very confusing.
No idea. So he's getting paid like so much money to do stuff like that. Like he's on like yachts, and I mean, a little bit too confident in this. And I think it's honestly kind of a shame that Tom Aspinall hasn't had a fight since then. And it's also kind of a shame because I really wanted to see this fight. And like, if we look at the heavyweight division right now, the Tom Aspinall, John Jones, I don't really know what we're gonna see. That, I mean, like obviously Cyril Gane is there, but he arguably should have lost to who was that, Volkov, in his last fight, and Volkov is who Tom Aspinall already beat. Like Cyril Gane, that's a good fight, but not crazy. And like, look at Tom Aspinall has already beat 3 of the top 5.
Pavlovich, Volkov, Curtis Blades,
and like decimated these guys.
Yeah, like not even close.
No. So it's like, if not this fight, like I want to see him get an undisputed shot, obviously, but like I just don't really know. I think you're definitely right that like there's definitely a world where Tom Aspinall, goes out and loses Cyril Gane, and then John Jones is like, oh my gosh. Or, I could see a world where John Jones relinquishes the belt, Tom Aspinall goes out and wins and beats a guy impressively, maybe beats Cyril Gane more impressively than he did, and then he's like, oh, I want to fight you now, and then it's another year. So it's just like a frustrating situation, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other issue is that my thing is like, and this is like mentally, like from the perspective of if I was John Jones, which that's hard to do, but If I'm John Jones and I'm looking at this from the perspective of, okay, I'm going to fight Tom Aspinall, I think it hurts John to wait the longer that he does. Obviously, with heavyweight, age is still an important factor, but I mean, with heavyweight, it's not really the same as like other divisions where you have like, oh, once you hit 35, like, so it's a lot harder. But I mean, like you're saying, in that situation, say John relinquishes the belt, waits a year, Tom Aspinall goes out there, flatlines Cyril Gane, and he's like, I want to fight. Okay, Tom, I want to fight you now. I think that just puts John at a major disadvantage. I mean, if anyone could do it, it's John Jones, but I think if I'm John Jones, I'd rather fight Tom Aspinall at 38 years old than at 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's kind of like my perspective. If I had to make a prediction, and this is based on literally nothing, I think they fight in December.
Oh yeah.
I just see it happening. But
So I have a question. Do you think that there's like more going on behind the scenes than we know? Like, do you think that maybe like you said in the beginning, like it could be, or do you think that is your prediction that like literally like something happens, John Jones changes his mind and it just like goes?
I think that I don't know. I would say that from a marketing standpoint, it would be genius for the UFC to create this facade that John Jones is ducking, because it's almost like the Jake Paul thing, where people like the whole reason Jake Paul is even relevant in boxing is the fact that people hate Jake Paul. Like the whole Mike Tyson, Jake Paul was successful at all was because people were so delusional in thinking that a 60-year-old Mike Tyson could beat up a guy who's been training in boxing that is 20 years old. That's the whole reason that was successful. That's the whole reason that people still watch Jake Paul's fights. I think if you can do the same thing with John Jones, where it's like, all right, John. And it's easy to dislike John Jones. I like John Jones, and it's easy to dislike John Jones.
Yeah.
But if you can make this thing where it's like, all right, John, we're not going to announce the fight until September. You're going to go to Thailand. You're going to like act like you're not interested in fighting at all. And then we're going to tell everybody like, we finally convinced John Jones to fight Tom Aspinall. Yeah. Like, imagine the numbers on that. That would be really good. But I don't think Dana looks that far ahead in things. I think this is kind of just. I would imagine that Dana would be more proactive if he genuinely thought that the fight wasn't going to happen. Now, at the same time, we've seen the same thing happen with Conor Chandler, where Dana's like, don't worry, guys, that fight's going to happen. We got that in the books. And it almost did. Like, aside from Conor, like, backing out, like, 4 days prior. But yeah, I mean, it's the same situation. I think the question I end up having is, and you could answer this, is there a realistic scenario that you could look at and say that John Jones is irrational for doing the things that he's done in regards to how he's treated the heavyweight division or his management of his championship reign?
Yeah, I've honestly been confused like this kind of the whole time the way he's handled it, because like obviously John Jones is, you know, I think if you make your pound for pound list, and I think this is one of our first episodes was this, like a pound for pound list of fighters, like without steroid use it's harder, but like if you don't consider any of the stuff that happened in his past, he's probably the best fighter of all time. You know, like skill for skill, he's probably the best combat athlete of all, like UFC fighter of all time. But I think it's going to be really hard when everything is said and done, if he goes out like the way he's going out with like his last like crazy X rants and all this stuff. It's going to be really hard not to remember. Obviously, he's going off on this insane winning streak. He's only really lost, actually never really lost. The one fight he lost was a based off a rule that has now been changed with the elbow. But it's going to be really hard not to remember the way this has all gone down. You know what I mean? Like if this all really is legit, because it from the outside it does kind of seem like he just does not want to fight this one specific guy. And I know that he keeps saying that you know, Tom hasn't done enough, all this blah blah blah. But like if he hasn't done enough, then why do he keep talking about it? You know, like what even is the point? I think if John Jones had beat Stipe and then said, I'm done, this is it, you know, legacy cemented, like, and legacy is still cemented, but I just don't really see the point if he never intended on fighting Tom Aspinall. Like if that was never his goal, then like what has been the holdup here? Like what are we doing? Why? So to answer your question in a long-winded way, I don't understand it. I don't really see how it has benefited John Jones at all if he really does never fight Tom Aspinall. I just think it hurts his like viewpoint in the eyes of the fans and other fighters, and I think it hurts. I don't think it hurts his legacy in general, but I think it hurts his legacy in the heavyweight division a little bit because, you know, I don't know, like especially if Tom Aspinall went out there and whooped Cyril Gane, you know, and the only two guys that John Jones would have beat at heavyweight would have been Cyril Gane and an old Stipe. So that those are my thoughts. I think it's a hard one, but you know, maybe I hope your prediction is right. If he fights Tom Aspinall in December, then I'll eat all my words and I will say brilliant fight promotion. You know, I think that's the only way that this turns around and becomes a good. Like imagine this has been happening for the last year. You know, Tom Aspinall's been calling for it. It's all been going on. We've all been angry at John Jones for holding up this division. Imagine they fight in December and John Jones like submits him in round one and it's like not even or like beats him up for 5 rounds and it's like not even close. Like what the pandemonium would be. It's
And I think that's the main thing. It's like the issue when you have these like drawn out fights like this, where it's like this isn't really like a common thing. I think the thing that kind of created this in the first place is the Conor Chandler. This reminds me of that a lot. But like we haven't really had like a situation where like this really like drawn out fight that should have been happening a long time ago thing happened. But like you talk about this fight so much that you forget that they're actually gonna fight. Like that's kind of the way I describe it. It's like when the fight actually does happen, it seems like too surreal. Like whenever it's like the whole build up to the Chandler Conor fight, when it was actually going down, like I spent so much time joking about that fight never happening that when it was actually started, like I just didn't feel as interested in it, I guess, if that makes sense, because it just, I don't know, I guess the drama of the fight itself kind of began to outweigh the actual importance of the fight. Not to say that this does the same thing, but if you think about it, like and like if we go to the legacy, for instance, say John goes out there and he fights Tom Aspinall, gets knocked out in like the second, third round, something like that. How significant does that affect his legacy as what some people would say is the best MMA fighter of all time? I mean, I think it, and like Thomas said this himself, because I think he went like on like a news like interview or something, and funny enough, this was like a year ago, so that just puts it into perspective. He was like, yeah, if I knock out John Jones, it'll mean I'm the best heavyweight in the world. And they were saying like, oh, does that mean you're like the best fighter in the world? And it's like, no, I'm not the best fighter in the world. I'm just the best fighter right now. John's still gonna be the best fighter in the world. Yeah, something like that. And and it's funny too, because like you would think, I think if Tom was more of an asshole, he would have gotten this fight already. Like nice. Like DC is one of the nicer guys in the UFC. And look at what John made that guy look like, or like how disrespectful he made DC. That's something only John Jones can do. I think if Tom went out there and it was like John, you're a bitch. Like you're scared of me. Just say it. Instead, he's been like, hi John. Yeah. Think I'm better than you. Come fight me. Yeah. Like I mean, the little duck thing was kind of funny. But, and like this kind of goes back to the same thing, like we were talking about this earlier. I think if you're Dana White, money's obviously important to John, but John has been set for the last 10 years of his life. Like he is fine. I think if you really want to get under John's skin to fight, you strip the belt, because at this point it doesn't really matter. Like the belt, and this kind of goes to the same thing. Like we talked about this a long time ago with Stipe. And we were like, the belt doesn't matter with the Stipe Jones fight. Mm-hmm. That fight itself is the important factor, because it's legacy versus legacy. And that was became more controversial as time passed, because Stipe just looked like a bag of bones out there just because of the age. But I mean, I think if you do this fight, no one's going to care about the fact that it's a title defense or not. If John goes out there and beats Tom Aspinall, no one's going to be like, oh, well, it wasn't a title defense, it doesn't matter. They're going to be like, John Jones went out there and beat up Tom Aspinall, a guy that everyone was saying was the best heavyweight in the world, and everyone thought that was going to beat him. Yeah. I think that's the thing that does it. And then you get your answer. If you strip John Jones and he does nothing after that, then you're like, okay, we move on. And if he turns around and he's like, no, I'm fighting, then you get your answer. I mean, I'm not applying to be the president of the UFC, but
I think that's great.
But I mean, I think that's just my opinion. When you're dealing with a guy like John Jones, who is very egotistical in that sense, and when money is clearly not an obstacle, you gotta move past financials. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. Well. Bottom line of this conversation is something needs to happen, right? Yeah. I think in general, if it's stripping John, if it is doing an ultimatum, if it is just booking an undisputed title fight, like no matter what it is, something's got to happen. But yeah, I think that. Do you have any more thoughts on this to wrap up this? I mean, I am sure, like you said, if it's booked or if it's not, this will come up again. This is not the last time we will be talking about this conversation, and definitely as more news comes out, we'll keep bringing it up. But yeah, any final thoughts, Drew?
Yeah, I guess I'll ask you this.
Yeah,
and this is kind of like a two-parter. At what point does this not become the most anticipated fight in the UFC? Like how long would you have to draw this out before people kind of stop caring about it? Because you kind of already see a little bit of that fatigue right now. Yeah. Where people are like, all right, well, just let's either do it or let's not do it. I don't really care. And I feel like it's almost the same thing with Conor, like how Conor and Chandler was. At first, it was like, oh my god, Conor's coming back. This is a really cool fight. And then Dana was like, oh, the fight's happening, and it spent so much time waiting on it that when it was finally announced, people were like, yeah, right. Sure. And like I feel like that same fatigue could end up happening if it's not already here. So I mean, I guess this is like a two-parter. if you were in Dana White's position, what would your course of action be? And and how long do you think it'll be, like, if this fight keeps getting put off before people just stop caring about it altogether?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw an insane curveball into the mix that was not brought up by me. I think I probably heard this on Ariel's show, but I think it is a great alternative to all this. If I was Dana White, I would. There's two options in my head. The biggest thing I'm doing is I'm re-signing Francis Ngannou, because I think the heavyweight division, outside of the top two guys we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes, is in a terrible spot right now. If you look at the top 15, it's not even like it's top heavy. There's just not a bunch of young contenders. You know what I mean? It's not. Jailton Almeida was kind of the last guy, and then he kind of took a little decline after he had a little win streak there. Yeah, curveball. I'm signing Francis Ngannou. I think if I was the UFC, I'm trying to make Francis versus John. I'm just gonna try to. I wouldn't personally like this because I think that hurts Tom Aspinall. But you have a star in John Jones that this might be his last fight. And John Jones, I think he accepted the Francis Ngannou fight a long time ago, and that was when that was trying to be made, but it just didn't work out because Francis didn't want to take the deal the UFC was giving him, whatever, all that stuff. But I'm making that fight to try to save this division, and then I'm going to put Tom Aspinall against the winner. Alternatively, if John Jones doesn't want that fight, if he actually is fully done, then you just make Tom Aspinall versus Francis, which I think is not as big, obviously, because it's not John Jones, but still pretty big. So that is what I would do. That's my curveball. And as far as how long before this fight kind of dies, I give it to the end of the year. I think I give it to the end of the year without, like, if there's no news by like November, December, I think people just stop caring. I think people would have stopped caring sooner, honestly, if we were seeing like Topuria Islam. Like, unfortunately there's not a fight on the horizon right now. There's some really good fights, don't get me wrong, but there's not like a super fight on the horizon right now that we can be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I think people are like still anticipating something to happen, right? I think that lends to the longevity of this conversation, but I don't think the UFC has too longer without fans just kind of,
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one, and it's crazy that in most of the solutions that we can think of, a lot of them end up with Tom Aspinall still ending up on like the side burner.
That's sad, dude.
Like, we were talking about how hard it is for Kamaru Usman to get a title shot. Yeah. Tom Aspinall has basically been a champion for the last 2 years, and he still hasn't gotten a title shot.
Yeah,
it's a crazy situation, and I guess it kind of talks. I mean, I guess it just also like speaks to, I guess, the relevancy of John Jones, and the fact that a guy who has fought 2 times in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we talked more about John Jones and Tom Aspinall than we did about the actual fight that happened yesterday.
The whole point of this episode.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to change the title of the
episode.
Clickbait. We need more clickbait.
We do.
That needs to be implemented. But yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy situation. I think I don't know how Dana does it, because I feel like mentally, like, I just imagine how mentally draining dealing with the Conor Chandler situation is, just to turn around and have virtually identically the exact same situation happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fortunate that this doesn't necessarily happen in most of the other divisions.
Yeah.
But I guess when you're dealing with guys that have been insanely controversial, like John and Conor, like, this is kind of the thing that you pay for whenever you want big pay-per-views and really big fights, which, I mean, when you have a guy like Conor who's the top, has all 5, I think all 5 of the highest pay-per-views. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. If not, I think the other one is John.
Yeah, I know his last fight, I think Stipe John hit 1 million, or at least maybe Sorogan, whatever. I know John has hit 1 million in the last couple, so yeah, John's up there too.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, it just speaks to how crazy how relevant he still is, even with his inactivity. But I think we've kind of covered everything within that. I mean, unless you have like a final thought or opinion that you have on the situation itself.
I think that's it for now. I mean, like I said before, I think there will be, fingers crossed, the next couple of months, some kind of resolution, but you never know.
John Jones versus Mick Parkin. Oh my God. I'm telling you.
You know what? I was being respectful. Everybody except for Mick Parkin. That is the one contender. That's the one contender I need to see.
When is Mick Parkin fighting next? I need to know.
I know. When is he? But yeah, I need to get a little Mick Parkin soundbite in here. That's what I need to do. That's my job before the next podcast episode, is get a little Get a little soundbite from our boy.
We gotta reach out to him. Like we got it. Like there's no way that this dude like would not come on the podcast or something like that.
Like, come on.
But I don't. There's nothing. There's no news about his like upcoming fights. But apparently he fought March 2020. March. I don't know if it was on the. Was that the Leon, Sean Brady card?
Yes. I guess
Gotcha.
that's when I saw the way in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So win there. So did he get a win there? I actually don't know.
Actually, he got flatlined.
Oh god.
No. Let's see.
I can look it up.
He fought Tiberia, which means he probably won.
Yeah.
No, Tiberia won by decision.
Well, it's all right. You know what? He was undefeated up to that point. So
yeah. See.
Gotta win some to learn, you know, or sorry, lose some to learn, you know. But
it's heavyweight. He's got more than enough time. It's
true. We talked about the contenders already, so
I was gonna say he's 29. He's got plenty of time. He's got like 11 years.
He's got at least 30 years at heavyweight. You know what I mean? Like, dude,
20 year title reign by McParkin loading right now.
There's a career in boxing waiting for him after. You know what I mean? He's gonna take that path, but he's
gonna put up crazy numbers when he fights Yoel Romero in dirty boxing in 10 years.
Oh my gosh! All right, well, I think that's it for episode 30. That's a milestone, right? 30 episodes. I think that's something.
Only took us 2 years.
Only took us 2 years.
Meanwhile, we have like 6 in the last like two weeks.
Some of them aren't even out yet. So
yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, this is episode 30 of the Fighters Forecast. I'm Henry.
I'm Bruce.
And we are out. Thank you.